let's talk about what the left's reaction to the attack in Israel have been. Now, this is, as you can see, with 23 million views and 100,000 likes. Um, Pretty much just the summary of the ideological left's position on the Hamas attack at Israel. As you can see there, Najma Sharifa said, "What do you all think decolonization meant? Vibes, papers, essays, losers.
Yeah.
Not like this, then what? Show us lol." Right. So, in response to seeing Israeli women and children being raped and massacred and carted off as sex slaves, just like things were done in the old days, this was one Somali woman's. She lives in Minnesota, by the way. So I don't know what right she has to talk about decolonization, but this appears to be what they want to happen. The word decolonization has been used a lot in the past few days because it's an old word. And so you've got someone like Ashley here who's like, well, this is a totally stable reaction. It's like, yeah, but she's literally telling you, what do you think decolonization meant? This is a stable reaction because they've been saying it for years. This is what they mean. This is, in fact, what they want to happen to you.
Such a mask off moment.
Well, the thing is, the mask has never really been on.
Well, yes.
It's just,
Yes.
nobody's been listening to them.
Yes.
Nobody has been listening to them, and so there was quite a backlash to people like, again, famous porn star Mia Khalifa, who decided she was fully on board the yes, Israeli women and children need to die. Can please someone tell the freedom fighters in Palestine to flip their phones horizontal? Now, again, I'm just using a couple of these examples because they're just emblematic of what we have seen. And there's just been, as soon as this happened, there was just a slew from the left of just, oh, this is good. We need more of it. It's pretty awful. This got her fired instantly. From Playboy, who Playboy is run by a Jewish man, and he was like, "Well, that's disgusting." And so she replies, "Well, I'd say my supporting Palestine has lost me business opportunities, but I'm more angry at myself for not checking whether or not I was entering into business with the Zionists." It's like, really, right? So Zionists are bad, and it's actually okay when they're getting slaughtered. Says one Lebanese porn star who can't return to Lebanon because of her career. I mean,
What is there to say, really?
I can't comment on this. I mean, where would you start?
I suspect Mia Khalifa hasn't got a particularly nuanced view of the conflict.
No,
and it's not. It's not really.
What do
her.
I know? Perhaps she's a scholar.
It's not really her. This was just emblematic of the popular response from the sort of the modern left. And of course, she's like, well, I want to make this clear. This in no way, shape, or form a way of inciting violence. But you'll see what they have automatically done. And we'll go through a few more. And you'll see exactly what they do is assume that Hamas are the legitimate authority of Palestine and just characterize them as Palestinians. The Hamas attack, no. There's no 4D chess going on. There's no international political game being played. It's not that they're a tyrannical terror group that took over, killed their opposition, and prevented any further elections and prevent any kind of peace process from going forward due to a kind of medieval style honor and hubris where they think that they'll be able to somehow just believe hard enough and take over and destroy Israel and kill all the Israelis. No, this is just totally normal, totally legitimate, as if they're a representative government. And so, again, this is what the Palestinian freedom fighters is how she characterizes Hamas. It's like, okay, they seem to be awful. I don't know how to describe it else. I mean, she was genuinely reveling in this, that she deleted this. As you can see, it's some Palestinians driving past an Israeli police car and shooting. This is a Renaissance painting, she says. I mean, that's just awful. But at least some Israeli is being murdered by a Palestinian, which seems to be entirely the sentiment. She ended up walking this back a bit, saying, well, I mean, I didn't say that Hamas were the Palestinians. It's like, it was Hamas doing it, and you kind of did harmonize the two. And then we get this one by Rivka Brown. Now, you might be thinking, who's Rivka Brown? Can we hover over commissioning editor and reporter at Navarra Media?
Okay.
She says, today should be a day of celebration for supporters of democracy and human rights worldwide as Gazans break out of their open-air prison and Hamas fighters cross into their colonizers' territory. The struggle for freedom is rarely bloodless, and we shouldn't apologize.
If she's trying to make the argument that they're doing this for democracy
and human rights,
let's remember that the moment that Hamas won their one election, they immediately set about murdering the opposition, and there's never been an election since. Whatever Hamas are doing, it's not for bloody democracy.
I don't think we'd say it was for human rights either.
No, I think both of those claims are rather weak, to be honest.
No, they're clearly doing it for Islam or for jihad or whatever it is they think, or for their land. But no, democracy and human rights is certainly not. But that's the commissioning editor at Novara Media. No backlash there.
Yep.
I mean, imagine if that was Rory saying something similar.
This will not impact her career in the slightest. If anything, it will only
not even slightly.
Aaron Bastani's got a comment on that tweet.
Does he?
No. If we were to ask him, what do you think of that?
No, I retweeted this and tagged him and said, this is an interesting statement, Aaron.
What did he?
No reply. He replies to a lot of my other stuff, just not this one.
It's nothing telling, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, and it's not just, of course, these people on Twitter. There have been, as you can see, communists out in the streets with pro-Palestinian activists, where they cheer that this attack happened because they want this attack to happen. They want these people to be dragged into the streets, raped and murdered. They want the children to be kidnapped. They're saying it. They're just totally open about it. And then you've got like a GB News commentator. Palestinians have done more in 5 minutes than Zelensky has done with 75 billion. Humiliation is an understatement. As if this is wonderfully impressive, what Hamas have just done. Again, this is someone who's on GB News. Like, this is crazy.
Extraordinary. And yet, we've just had a week where what happened to Lawrence Fox?
Yeah,
this is fine.
Yeah, exactly. Lawrence Fox comments on whether he finds a woman attractive. 3 people fired. Yeah. She says this. Nothing.
Celebration of the murder and rape of women and children.
Broader point. Just super quick broader point. I've never been able to understand the connection between leftism and Islam. It's never really made sense to me.
It is purely because they see Islam as a revolutionary force that can destroy the West.
But it will turn on them immediately after traditionalists and conservatives.
As in 1979, it was an alliance between the left and the Islamists. And the moment the Islamists had power, the left were put up against the wall first.
Right. But how do they not know that or not?
They don't know anything, do they?
Because these are Marcuse's radicalized students who don't realize that once they bring around the revolution, they're just going to be the first case of all. They are genuine, true believers. They're insane.
Like how someone can be a feminist and an Islamist apologist at the same time. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense?
Raped women being dragged around on the back of pickup trucks by the Islamists. Yeah,
I did see one Western feminist tweet. Revolutionary uprisings against colonialism shouldn't involve rape of women, and I retweet it and go, okay, but they do. What now?
Yeah. But it does.
Obviously, she privated her account. So, but you've got the very ideological position. But I think really what it is they never think they're going to lose control. Right? That's what I think it is. I think they have such a superior view of themselves and such an inferior view of the colonized that they think that these people will never actually be in control, running through the streets, shooting people, raping people, blah blah. So they think it'll never be them. They always assume there's going to be some Western power structure that can impose law and order, which, of course, is not always true.
They should look into Lebanon.
Yeah. So I had a look at this, and in 2021, because you'll notice that they will complain shortly about collective punishment. So in 2021, a poll found that 53% of Palestinians believe that Hamas is most deserving of representing and leading the Palestinian people, where only 14% preferred Fatah, which I think is interesting. Because you get people like Mehdi Hassan, who are like, well, Israel cutting off the water supply and electricity to Gaza is collective punishment. Okay, so is butchering a group of Israelis collective punishment for the actions of the state of Israel?
I mean, he's not wrong, but it's just, how do you not see that both sides are doing collective punishment on each other?
Exactly. Both sides believe in collective punishment. So
yes,
when the Palestinian defenders go, oh, well, you can't do this to us, this is collective punishment. Well, you can't just go into a music festival and butcher a bunch of Israeli teenagers, because that is also part of your collective punishment. So, no side is any better than the other there, but at least the Israelis are civilized. I would say, like, I retweeted, I think it was Jeffrey Miller, who's just like, look, when one side doesn't rape and murder women and children in the street, but bombs people and causes civilian casualties, and the other is proudly presenting the sort of 7th century savagery as being good and noble, I actually am going to side with just the ones that are slightly more civilized. So
I have to draw it out a bit. I mean, I have to make a clear distinction between Hamas and the population, although I acknowledge a lot of the population support it, and also the Israeli people in the Israeli government.
Well, I'm against the collective punishment of both, but like,
yeah,
you know, like, but the point being, they have no position to complain because they're all cheering on the rape and murder of women and children and innocent civilians, and then saying, "Oh, don't collectively punish us." Well, you are in favor of collective punishment as long as it's going the right way.
Yes.
If I can just grab some of these, which are just remarkable. And so this is how they rationalize it. They view the Israelis as not civilians, right? When you steal the land of others and deny them basic human rights, you don't really get to be a civilian. So literally, as you can say, they're committed to a course of action where any one of them can be murdered at any time, and they have to go, yes, it's okay to murder me because I'm an American living on indigenous soil. So if a Native American killed me, well, I'm not really a non-political civilian. So there is no such thing as just civilian casualties, which
lefties just shouldn't try and do logic because it goes terribly wrong for them.
It's fine. No, they're being perfectly logically consistent here. It's just what they're advocating for is just monstrous, and it would be awful. So yeah, then I suppose we'll go to the threat of what's going on in European cities.
So for those listening, this is a large group of, I would imagine, Arab Australians stood outside the Sydney Opera House chanting "Gas the Jews." And there are populations like this now in every Western
city. The ISIS flag there?
Yeah. Right. Because we have, in the West, we have driven the most amount of immigration that we could possibly manage. And so we now have large populations in all of our cities who are, as we can evidently see here, in favor of the extermination of another group of people who live in those cities.
Yeah. And this Sadiq Khan had to put out a statement saying,
yes.
we will protect the Jewish citizens of London. And it seemed very much like a pointed message to a certain demographic. Say, don't even think about it, which is very interesting, I thought.
But I mean, how do we? I mean, so let's say my worst case scenario plays out. It escalates to a war with Iran. That becomes a regional conflict. And then basically it becomes perceived as what it really is, which is a Muslim-Jewish war.
Yeah.
If that's happening, and then what you're then going to get is you're going to get the social media feeds of both sides filled up with dead kids all the time. So these populations are going to be fed a constant stream of dead Muslim children. And vice versa on the other side. Yeah. How does this not blow up every European city?
Well, there is, I think, going to be bloodletting in the streets.
Yeah. Sectarian violence, bombings, all the rest. I mean, we're already seeing shops in Golders Green, a very Jewish area of London, getting smashed. It's only a matter of time until some young Jewish kid gets dragged off the street. And
well, there was some Jews who was shot in Egypt shortly after the attack.
Egypt, okay, but this could be happening in European cities.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but yeah. So it just appears that we have a large number of people who live here now who are deeply invested in this conflict,
and Europe, the Western world, made a choice to get as many of them as it possibly could.
Yes,
and we are now going to have to deal with the fallout of the fact that multiculturalism is a sick joke that doesn't work.
Well, the problem with multiculturalism is that the different cultures have brought their own baggage with them and aren't prepared to stay in the prescribed boundaries that the state and progressives thought that they would. Oh, well, we can make them live side by side and there'll be no problem. It's like, okay, but what happens when you have an intractable problem like this that is something that spills out regardless of where in the world these people are?
Yeah, and it's not a problem. It's not our problem. I mean, I understand that there's a British history involved in all of this, but now it is very much the problem of everybody who lives in a European city.
None of them are saying, "Oh, the British are
No,
like no. They don't. We are definitely bystanders to this conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Thoughts?
Not many. I mean, it's all pretty self-evident, isn't it? What's going on? it's interesting that there's some have got Palestinian flags, some have got ISIS flags, some have got Lebanese flags. Saw a lot of people in London with Turkish flags.
Because so what I think is interesting is a lot of this isn't necessarily ethnic and seems to be religious.
Right. Yeah.
Right? That's the thing.
Are you Palestinian? Are you an Arab?
Muslim?
Or are you Muslim?
Yeah.
And then because there is, well, yeah. Okay.
Well, I saw lots of people on Twitter saying things like, "These are my people," and then you check their bios and they're like from Turkey. And it's like, okay, so when you say mine, you must mean the Ummah, right? Not that they're Turkish, obviously, not ethnically. And in Europe, we think much more in terms of ethnic lines, right? So if when the British are when we are bombing Germany, I don't think, oh, that's Dresden, that's my people, because I'm like, okay, but they were Germans and we were at war with them. But that's not how these people are looking at this conflict, I think.
It is interesting that there's, in a terrifying way, that there's from Morocco to Indonesia, a
collective solidarity.
Yeah, with Palestine.
To be fair, that sort of collective identity, group identity, is something that actually most groups do, with the exception of white Europeans.
Possibly. Yeah.
We just don't see the world in that way. We tend to have an out-group preference, if anything, particularly on the left. And on that basis, we filled up our cities with people who have a very strong in-group preference, and in many cases, centuries-long blood feuds. And we are now going to come up against the reality of what we've done to our cities when global events spiral out as they look like they're about to.
And I think it's worth adding as well that there's moral wrong on both sides here. Both sides have a litany of things that have been done to them by the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel like it's not necessarily completely fair to just utterly dunk on Muslims here. I mean,
no.
where Ben Gurion declared Israel in 1948, there was going to be repercussions to that. How did they not think that there would be sort of endless repercussions to that?
There were atrocities done.
Right.
Against the Arab population of Palestine. There were atrocities done.
And the settlers thing, obviously they don't, in my opinion, don't deserve death or anything.
No.
And of the two sides, the Israelis do seem to be, or are, less barbaric.
Absolutely.
But there is a long list of mistakes, should we say, on their side.
But there are lots of dead people on both sides. So
just the idea that both engage in collective punishment, just right there.
Yeah, they do.
Just right there. I mean, so you're locked into a cycle of violence.
Unavoidable at the stage.
So you're locked. Well, right. Well, yeah.
So I mean, we're going to have to watch this one with trepidation because, of course, it would be nice to think that this one will be wrapped up neatly in a couple of weeks, but it seems unlikely. And that this is going to. Well, I mean, this is the new current thing. I mean, I mentioned before we came on air that I went to the BBC homepage, I went to Sky News, I went to CNN, and did a search Control F for Ukraine. Not a peep.
But this has been bubbling under the surface for many years, and as you can see, like this is the response to them attacking Israel. Right? Yeah. They attacked Israel. The Hamas, the Muslim world, as far as they view it, attacks Israel, and then they get out and they're cheering it on. Like, say, we've stepped into something here that I really don't want to be a part of.
Well, just as I say, its heart, or one of the many things at its very heart, sort of Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa compound there. That's sort of an intractable dilemma.
No, there's no solution to any of this.
Right. So not only is it not going to go away in a couple of weeks, it may never go away, or let's never say never. We've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years left of human civilization.
Our lifetime, certainly.
It's right. Yeah. I don't see it ever coming to an end in anyone's lifetime that's alive today.
No, of course not.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as Lads Hour, this one on Who Would You Spend 48 Hours As. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.